In today's episode, once again, we speak to the amazing Garrett Gunderson. Garrett is a founder of Wealth Factory, an Inc. 500 company that has educated 350,000 entrepreneurs on effective ways to grow cash flow, plug financial leaks, and reach economic independence without sacrificing, scrimping, or becoming a Scrooge. He is a New York Times and Wall Street's #1 best-selling author on personal finance book, Killing Sacred Cows, Overcoming the Financial Myths That Are Destroying Your Prosperity, as well as What Would the Rockefellers Do? How the wealthy get there and stay that way, and how you can do it too. And of course, 2 more books, Money Unmasked and I Am Money. And today we're speaking to Garrett about your money persona. So how does your money persona limit or help you with wealth? Let's find out. And remember, if you want to upgrade your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And once again, we have the amazing Garrett Gunderson. Welcome, Garrett.
Hey, good. That was fun. I love talking with you, even offline. We are having some fascinating conversations, so I look forward to sharing it with the listeners.
Thank you so much, Garrett. Garrett, everyone's heard your intro. They know how fabulous we are, but please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Well, first off, I've been married for 21 years and have 2 kids. So I'm a husband and a father. And what I feel like my favorite work is how do we create a legacy within our family by creating rituals, traditions, and symbols. We actually have a family crest. We actually have this family cabin. It's kind of like a lodge that we go to on a regular basis. We have these really cool traditions that we roast each other once a year around Christmas and tease each other, and we laugh and love it. And then we have these summer Olympic games that we do where we pick dumb games and play against each other and have a lot of fun. So I feel like, I'm raising 2 kids, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and we've had fascinating conversations around money, around career, around purpose. My youngest opened up as a comedian for me when I filmed my comedy special when he was 13 years old, did it, and he's super funny. And so, that's a big part of my life is how do I create a life I don't want to retire from, and how do I live wealthy along the way instead of one day, someday? So one of my main messages is how do we create a life without sacrifice? Because a lot of times people sacrifice the best moments for one day, someday, and one day, someday is always in the horizon, always in the future, and it actually becomes habitual that leads to scarcity of either playing to win by chasing success or playing not to lose by holding on to what we got at the expense of our future. And so, I have written a lot of books around money and prosperity. I've created a lot of video courses around the same thing. And over the years, I had a firm where we worked with a lot of clients one-on-one. And still to this day, I bring people up to my lodge and we help them design a life that they love and go through their finances, their business, and quality of life. And so I do that 24 times a year. And then I just love to write. I love to write, and I love to date my wife. That's another thing that's like my favorite pastime. So yeah.
Wonderful. So Garrett, today we're talking about how your money personas either help or limit you. So let's talk through that. So how many money personas do you talk about?
There's 4 money personas, and there's the shadow side of the persona and the winning side of the persona. And so there's the miser who plays a game called preservation. They usually end up with money they won't spend because they're addicted to holding on to what they've got. There's the conservative that plays a game called accumulation and end up with funds that they can't spend because they're afraid they're never going to have enough. Those are both play not to lose. And then there's the 2 play to win personas, which is the striver that plays a game called status. And they think they can work harder to make more money, but they inevitably burn out. And then there's the high roller who plays a game called opportunity and is likely to end up bankrupt because taking on too much risk leads to short-lived riches, or they cut corners. So those are the shadow sides of the persona: miser, conservative, striver, and high roller. And so I wouldn't say that we're all of any one of those. And at different phases of our life, I've played each one of those. Like when I first got married, I was a miser because that's how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
We pinch pennies, we coupon clip, we spent 10 hours to save 3 cents a gallon on gas. There's like a lot of that kind of like hold on to what you got mentality. And it wasn't great for my wife because when we went on this cruise for our honeymoon, she wanted to buy a bag, but I was like, babe, why do you need to buy a bag? You already have a plastic bag they gave us on the way in. Now my wife was pretty smart because she made sure she was photographed with that bag in every single shot so that she could come back and tease me about not letting her buy a little bit nicer bag. That was the miser. I also, at a different phase, a little later in life, was kind of playing the losing game of the conservative. And I remember her and I had a date night and she wanted to order a glass of wine. I was like, babe, a glass of wine? Have you ever heard of the Massachusetts Investor Trust Fund, the first ever mutual fund created? If we invested $1, just $1 at its inception over 100 years ago, now be worth $1,207.33. Now, she didn't order the wine, which meant that, date night was over and so was dinner. So that was unfortunate. Then the longest period of time in my life has really been the striver. And the striver, for me, like, was the worst case scenario when my first son was born, because I left the hospital early to go back to work, even though he was kind of hooked up to wires and machines. And my wife was in recovery and scared and didn't even get hold of him while I was gone. Because the striver, I was just addicted to more and status and work. So, and then the high roller, I haven't been that too often, but I did dip my toe into high roller land once when my partner said, you can't drive the same car as our secretary if we're going to attract high-end clients. So I bought a Bentley, took some pictures of it on this place called the Salt Flats, which is in a bunch of movies here in Utah where I live. And someone on social media said I look like a pretentious douche, which was true because I was on the Salt Flats taking pictures of my car. It was pretty short-lived. But see, those are based upon our upbringing, like my family is mostly misers because coal mines went on strike and they were coal miners.
Yeah.
Or my great-grandfather had to live away from his wife for 7 years because he had to live in a tent and save up enough money for her to come to America. So that's where a lot of this comes from, is like experience and family belief systems and our pain and but most of them are really just from scarcity. It's from a mindset of believing there's never enough, or there's a lack, or that we've got to do all that we can, or that we are our money and that our net worth and our self-worth is exactly the same thing, or all those kind of belief systems that kind of cloud us, put us in the shadow side of the money personas.
Okay. So that's quite interesting, actually. And as you were talking through, and I was going through in my head, and I can relate to all four at some point in my life too. And I think I've been overly optimistic a lot of the time. So I think, especially in my younger years, I never actually consider the downside. And then if the downside happens, it doesn't matter, I'll make it again. And so I'm constantly making money and losing money, constantly making money and losing money in the past. Not so much now, but when I was younger.
So you feel like you were a high roller when you were younger?
I think so. I think when I was younger, I was much more constantly taking risks.
High roller. They make a lot, they lose a lot. They make a lot, they lose a lot. Yeah.
But I mean, the good thing out of it would be that I've gained a lot of insight, and those are lessons. I'll treat them as lessons rather than actually losses. Yes. They're expensive lessons, but they're still lessons. And
wins and lessons instead of wins and losses, right?
Exactly, 100%. So let's take each one of these personas individually and let's unpack a little bit more. So let's go with the first one. Let's go with the miser. So what is a miser, and what would be the positive aspects of a miser? What would be the shadow side? I think you mentioned some shadow sides, but let's take it individually, one at a time.
So let's start with the positive side. The positive side of the miser is what I would call the mindful manager.
Right.
The mindful manager is detail-oriented, they're efficient, and they're really great at improving things.
Yeah.
They're awesome for an organization that wants to reduce waste, enhance ideas, and be resourceful. Like that's what the mindful manager. Like I remember talking to someone, and when they were only thinking of themselves, there's only so much money that they can save. But when they started to go, what they actually were working in was they would go from casino to casino and find out where they were inefficient. And then they were averaging $900,000 of savings per casino by finding out where they were inefficient. That's the mindful manager. And so to go from a shadow to a winning persona is simply when you start thinking in co-creation versus isolation, or collaboration instead of competition. And if we can get to co-creation or collaboration, it takes an abundant mindset then the core structure is value creation. And that value expands instead of hoarding, which shrinks. And so mindful manager is the positive side of the miser.
And as you were saying this, there's somebody I know that came to mind who is an excellent mindful manager, but I can see the shadow side as well. And I sort of smile because I have various tactics. I'm extremely patient too. I sort of smile and say, okay, I know how to deal with this, and just smile and manage properly without being offensive to the individual, because they're not coming from a space of irritation or annoyance. They're just worried and concerned because the miser side is coming out, but they are brilliant on the other side. So it's interesting because you can see those around you. I think and I have sometimes when I am a brilliant mindful manager, miser I don't ever see myself being, but yes, mindful manager, yeah, can be. But I think other personas come and take more for hold on me. So that's mindful manager / miser being the shadow side. What's the second one?
So the conservative, which isn't a political thought process, it's just a fiscal thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Their counterpart or winning persona is the planner. The planner's stable, they're thoughtful, they're a very strategic person. They're really good for an organization that needs pro formas and projections and wants to monitor the effectiveness and efficiency of an initiative or plan for contingencies. So CFOs can be this way a lot of times, right? That's kind of that planner segment. They could be very consistent amidst chaos. And so, for example, there's this planner that when I met him, he was a conservative. Everything was about funding the retirement plan. And his wife told me, she goes, all he thinks about is money. All he talks about is money. It's always about what can we set aside and how much is in the retirement plan. And then he came to this one-day workshop way back in the day, 2005. And I was talking about cash flow and a different wealth framework. And he was like, you know what? I don't even like my job as an engineer. I have to design airplane engines, and I just smell airplane gas in the place that we're designing them all the time. I just am sick of it. He says, I'm going to put my skills to better use. And so he decided, as his investor DNA, to do real estate because he was really good at analyzing. He was really good at looking at spreadsheets. He's really good at looking what growth patterns there could be. And he bought single family homes until he replaced his income. He did it in 362 days. Now, only a planner would probably do what he did. He went and he said, all right, where could we cut out some expenses and then take that money to go towards this real estate? And where can I find 20 hours a week to work on real estate while I still keep my full-time job? And he was able to do this, right? And it changed their life, because once he had financial independence, where enough cash flow came in from the assets, it meant every dollar he then could work on would bring in 100% more towards assets instead of covering his lifestyle. And this is what he did. He came to me and said, I want to work with you. And I was like, okay, I don't really have an open position. He goes, well, I wrote this report. I call it cash flow optimization. And I think if people restructure their loans or renegotiate their interest rates or reallocate their funds from low interest earning accounts to pay off higher interest rate loans, they could save thousands of dollars per month. And he showed me this, and I was like, this is brilliant. So that was the planner in him. He could look and go, here's where there's inefficient money, and we can really help people to understand how to improve their cash flow. And so that's that planner, versus when he was a conservative, it was just about how much he could save into his retirement account versus what he could do to build more value for these organizations by understanding their details.
And it's funny how the positive sides are really, really positive. And it doesn't matter which persona you have, you can actually become really, really abundant. And because it has different ways for you to be, to tap into your zone of genius and create that wealth and abundance for yourself. So it doesn't matter which one you are. We all have our own talents. We all have our specialties. We all have our unique abilities, and they all allow us to create that abundance. That way, in telling you that universe, God, isn't unfair. The talents present. It may not be the same talent, but is present in every single one of us. Okay, so that's the second one. What about the third one?
So the third one is the striver for the shadow persona, or the creator for the winning persona.
Right.
The creator is an artist, or an inventor or an entrepreneur.
Mm.
So they lead with innovation and ingenuity, and they create new ways for people to add value.
Right.
So that's really that creator. So a lot of entrepreneurs fall in that category for sure. I would say that that's the winning persona for me most of the time is the
Mhm.
creator. I like to write. I like to do these podcasts. I like to be on video. I like to think through strategy, invent new ways to do business. Like that's all kind of the winning side of that.
Wonderful. And if you talk more about the shadow side.
So the shadow side of the striver would be, I will work harder to make more money at all expenses. So the striver is frenetic. They are exhaustive. They are like, I will outwork anyone, and I don't care if it's 16 hours a day or 20 hours a day. I just eat, breathe, and sleep work. And that's what the striver does, because they think they could just make more money in order to be better off, but they burn out because it eventually exhausts them.
Mm.
And you see a lot of this, and there's a lot of that hustle and grind and work and more and bigger and faster, and that's like what a lot of the stuff is out there around business is
At the moment. Yeah, I mean, especially, there's certain names come to mind, and I respect them a lot, like Gary Vee and so forth. I really, and Grant Cardone, really highly respect them. They're amazing individuals, but the hustle attitude is something that that it's not productive for everybody. Let's just say that.
Right.
Maybe
and it's funny
some
because
people.
those are the first two names that come to mind for me.
Hmm.
And I will say this, I feel like Gary Vee has evolved. Like the crush it version of Gary Vee was, I will work 20 hours a day and outwork everybody that's in existence. But last time I heard him speak, he was like, had a personal trainer. He was starting to give thought to like what it meant to be in a family. Like, and I see his writing has changed a little bit, because it used to just be like outwork.
Yeah.
Grant, on the other hand, Grant's all about work. Like when I interviewed him a couple times, and he had something, did you celebrate the win? He goes, no, I'm on to the next thing. So, and this is like, I don't mean to be critical of anything. I just want to point out, like, if your goal is to be a billionaire, it's a pretty miserable life, because what does becoming a billionaire have to do with quality of life? Yes, you can buy a private jet, but you have to use it because you have so many things on your plate. And you can't buy back the memories you never have. And strivers think that one day they're going to flip a switch and now everything's going to be less busy. But it's habitual. It's like an addiction. It's workaholism. And typically it's because they're trying to show people their value versus feel their value. Look at what I can buy. Look at what I could do. And what I found is when I am in that mode, it's actually off-putting, not connective. Like when I'm like, look at my Bentley. They're like, thanks, douche. When I'm like, hey, look at this. Like, what people want is to be seen, not to be shown. They want someone 100%. To see them and feel like to cheer them on. The people that I'm like most connected to are the ones that are always like rooting for me and like helping me, not the people that I have to prove anything to. Like and the problem is we make a lot of these strivers our heroes. Like Michael Jordan is one of the greatest athletes of all time, but had a chip on his shoulder and is always bitter.
Yeah,
so,
always bitter.
Always.
I mean, he was an amazing athlete, but as a person, he was always bitter, and he's always out to prove himself. He's, I'm good, I'm the best, and it's when you're saying this, and I think I've naturally. I mean, I don't like showing materialistic things. I talk about certain things about myself because I'm in the public arena, and I share my story and my journey, and it's quite. I think it's useful for people to know where I was, and especially after my divorce and where I am now. So it gives people hope. But again, I do very little of that. And when people meet me in person, they realize, oh, you're so down to earth, and I'm not being down to earth on purpose. It's just who I am. And I would go. I remember the recent company that I bought. I personally sat down with every single individual, and I remember talking to them, and I don't think they cared that much the fact that I bought the company. They cared the fact that I gave them the 15-20 minutes of my time, individually spoke to them about them, who they were, and I remember I gave the 18-year-old the same time that I gave his dad, and I spoke to him about his aspirations and so forth. I think that was a memory that he would cherish more than the fact that this woman coming in and has bought this company, is doing X, Y, and Z. So it's not about what, I'm brilliant. It was more about, okay, you're amazing, you're fantastic, and your colleagues think that about you too, and so forth. And that is more valuable, and people value and appreciate that more. When I shared people that I bought my company and with a few people, A couple of people were happy, the rest they're like, and they weren't really interested. I was happy as I was sharing, but most people didn't care. And I wasn't being pompous. I was just over the moon that, we managed to get this company after months of striving. But I agree with you. It's people don't care what you have. They care about how you make them feel. And this is the important factor. And I think about, as you were talking, I was thinking about, this persona probably resonates with my ex-partner, and he's also a narcissist, so that's another story. But he really was about showing, and I'm this and that and this. And I remember, in my life now, I would be seen as financially very well off, so forth. But I remember thinking when I had my daughter and even when my son's a baby, these years are more important to me. I don't mind being in crappy clothes and whatever else and driving whatever and whatever have you, as long as I get to spend that time with my kids, because I knew money is something that I can always make, and I will make later. I've made it before, I'll make it again later. These years will not go. And one of the biggest gambles in my life that I took, well, seen as a gamble, I don't think it was a gamble, I thought it was, again, calculated risk. My father thought it was a big gamble, is when I got divorced from my partner, that's not 7 years ago, I had the option to go back to law and become I was a banking and finance lawyer, to go back and become a lawyer again. But I remember thinking I would be spending 70, 80 hours outside of my home. And these kids who hardly see their father will literally be brought up by nannies. There's no way around, because mommy won't be around. Mommy cannot be around because mommy will be making money trying to feed them. And I remember deciding that, no, I will start a business from home. Even until that point, nothing was working. But I took the risk of saying, no, I'll stay home and we'll live in whatever we can afford. But mommy will be home and my kids will grow up and see mom. Now that can be seen as a gamble. I didn't think it was. I thought it was more important for my kids to see me than for them to have, cars and whatever else.
Yes.
And now it's worked out in the way that I've been able to be around my kids, be there for making sure that I can cook food from whatever else. And they see mommy first thing in the morning and last thing at night. At the same time, I have thriving multiple, 7-figure businesses. But it does pay off because my priority was my children. It still is my children. I see myself as a full-time mother and a part-time business owner because my primary role is a mother. I think this is more important because we have to know that this time with our family, with our children, is never going to come back. My kid is never, one of my kids, child's 15, 16, the other one's 12. They're never going to be 16 and 12 again. Last year, 15 and 11 have gone. 5 and 9 have gone. They're never going to come back.
Yep.
So I think that's important. But I remember just thinking about this thing. I was thinking whenever I used to talk to my ex, I used to tell him all the time, like, you need to spend more time with your family, because they're never going to be 2. They're never going to be 3. And I remember him coming home, and he used to stay away from Monday to Friday, and he used to come home on the weekends. In the weekends, he would spend sleeping. And I have to just, argue with him to even spend like an hour with him in the park or something. So, that's another story. But I remember, and he used to say, let me make money now and I'll spend time with them later. Let me make money now. Let me spend time with them later. Now, there were alternatives.
That's what strivers say. That's the mantra of the striver. And they also lie and say, I'm doing this for the family. They're not.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for their own
who am I doing
satisfaction.
this for? Yeah, who am I doing this for? I'm doing it for you guys.
I've said that to my wife long ago, and she stood up to me and she's like, is this the life that you really want? And thankfully, she was patient and powerful. And I was like, you're right. It's never going to get better if I don't make it better now. Yeah. And we'll never buy back the memories that we don't have. And thankfully that she stood up. She stood up to it. And, and I listened, and our life is so much richer because of it. Yeah. And that's what it is like. What does it take to live a rich life? See, the striver really does want to earn the status, where the high roller doesn't care whether it's real. High roller will rent a car and pretend it's theirs. A high roller will rent a home and take pictures, or be on a private jet once and act like it's theirs, where the striver absolutely wants to earn it. So that's the difference between the striver and the high roller in the persona side, But the high roller's counterpart, their winning persona is amazing. It's the catalyst, a visionary, a mover and shaker, a connector. They think and play big and show us ways we can all win together. So the catalyst gets things moving, which is great. The high roller takes on too much risk and is too volatile.
Yeah. And as you speak, you were saying that, I think I can see the high roller in me, but I can see the other side of me as well, the connector and the creative. And, I'm all about Yeah, how can I make you feel good about yourself? How can I give you the confidence that you are lacking, even though it's not false, it's not false, compliments. They're genuine compliments. And I go in and I come with genuine compliments that you're amazing at this, you're brilliant at this, you're fantastic at this. And people, I think initially when they were, when they first meet me, they're a bit like, oh, okay, where's she coming from? When they get to know me, they realize she's giving them genuine compliments because that's who I am. But that's not normal, I think, in this day and age.
That's a catalyst is so good at complimenting people.
Yeah.
They really are abundant enough to acknowledge, like the catalyst in my life introduced me better than I could ever introduce myself. I wouldn't, it's like, wow, they just see you and they connect people, and it's really great. It's really special if you have catalysts in your life. It just makes your life so much richer. And it's great, like I'm a catalyst in certain circumstances. I like to connect people, but if I'm given my choice of the winning personas, I'm going to naturally be a creator. I love to write. I love to do what we're doing here, right? But I also do love the connection. It's just my primary is going to be creation first, catalyst second. I'm not really great at the details of looking at a balance sheet. I can do it. I don't
I'm
love
not
to do
either.
it.
I'm good at maths, and yes, it's not that doesn't excite me at all, I have to say.
Right. Well, and that's what people need to understand, because I think you and I we have a lot of similar philosophies, and we view the world very similarly. And because we both know a lot about money, people think we know a lot about spreadsheets. But the reality is we know conceptually how money works and philosophically what money is, which is the most important part. And the other part is just the tracking mechanism to the philosophy. If you don't understand philosophically what money is, tracking numbers will be a limitation, not actually helpful, because you'll get stuck in the myopic view of scarcity versus the value exchange of abundance.
100%. And you can always hire really these amazing experts to do that for you.
That doing it.
Yeah. And you can have management accountants and CFOs who can help you along in the process. And so you don't have to worry about the microscopic numbers. That's what they're for. They can help you build the cash flow forecast. They can help you build, do the management accounts. You can have your vision, and they can help you build that vision through numbers. But you need to have the vision in the first place. And so let's find this one, as we wrap this up. As you were talking, I found that I myself, like I would say, I'm between, a creator and a connector. So I'm more for, the last two. And I can see the shadow side, but I can see the shadow side more from the, the high roller. That's probably me more than any other persona. So is that the case? Have you found that a lot of people, they overlap and they have some characters of
primary and secondary?
Okay.
Primary and secondary.
So then I would be a primary, a creator and
like,
no.
Yeah, so like on the playing not to lose side, people are probably conservative primary, miser secondary. On the playing to win side, you might be primary catalyst or primary, creator, and then the other one's a secondary. So like it's just because it's on that side of the equation. Are you either playing not to lose or playing to win? Now, the whole secret in my book, Money Unmasked, is how do you come from a place of abundance that you create a life you don't want to retire from and a winning game from the beginning, so that you stay in your winning persona and enjoy life along the way. So your quality of life is enhanced, and that you find the win in the work, not the win in when you stop working. Like never retire from value creation. Retire from the things you hate. It might take a while to figure out what that life of value creation is. 7 years ago, you made this choice that has set you up today to be able to do what you do. But that choice was difficult. That choice was uncertain. That choice was calculated risk. A lot of people are so stuck because they have too much consumer debt, because they have too much identity wrapped into the stuff that they have. And ultimately, what would happen if our life was an expression of value creation in a way that wasn't just work that we didn't want to do, but because it had good benefits, or we started it at an early age? Like, I get that it takes a leap of faith to treat ourselves like our greatest asset and to invest fully in ourselves, but it's worth it. And look, I'm here to promise you, there will be mistakes. There will be lessons along the way. It's just part of being alive. Nobody's written a story yet where they're like, this person was born, they lived a perfect life, and at the end, they were rewarded with nothing but happiness. Like, there's always that up and down and that ebb and flow, and that's part of how we evolve as human beings.
I would go so much, I would go and add the fact that the bigger the life that you're going to play, the bigger the mistakes you have to make, and the bigger the life lessons. And there's a saying by one of the pastors, and I love listening to pastors, by the way. Certain pastors I absolutely love and adore listening to them, even though I'm Muslim, but I do it for not for a religious point of view. I just love the message that they have. And this one particular pastor kept talking about how, when an arrow's and when you pull back an arrow, the further back you pull, the further ahead it goes. And if you look at your life, there are times when you literally feel like you've been pulled back so much and think, okay, how? Well, what more can I do? How else can I get out? But when you are let go and when you fly, you really do fly. And if I look upon my life and, the things that have happened, if you looked at my life 7 years ago in 2016, you would think, oh my God, poor Gull, she's had one bad luck after the other and blah, 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 blah. You would literally, you can say it to me. I didn't feel it, but a lot of people would say it. And now, 7 years later, you think, oh my God, she's so lucky. She's got this and this and this. Again, I don't feel I'm lucky. I just think I'm very good at, handling situations. But again, I feel that as I was pulled back, I've been able to shoot that much further. But the lessons I've learned and the knowledge I acquired, especially about myself, who I am and who Gull is, has been truly beneficial in me creating the life that I have today. And so unless you go through these difficult times, these difficult lessons, you cannot create a life of, your dreams, so to speak. The bigger the lesson, the bigger the downfall, the greater the rise, and the greater the creation of your life.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. I fully agree.
Awesome. So on that note, we're going to wrap this up too. We've gone over the half-an-hour mark again, but hey, it's been a fantastic conversation. So tell us, Garrett, how can we find you? Where can we connect with you on the internet?
Everything that we just talked about at moneyunmasked.com, unmasked. So if they go there, that's my newest book. It's on the money personas. And then GarrettGunderson.com is my main site for just, if you want to read my blog or check out different resources or hear what people are saying. We only put the nice stuff. We should start putting the mean stuff because I get some of that too, but you could find that on YouTube.
Oh, plenty of that on YouTube, isn't it? Anyway, so if you are listening to us on the podcast, the links that Garrett has just mentioned will be on the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, down below in the description section, we will have his links as well. Go check him out. He's amazing and really, really interesting to talk to as well, and listen to. So go check him out, see how he can help you and how he can help you to build a better life and better business. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Garrett, for just an interesting conversation, both for Friday Future and today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to me and Garrett today. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.